Hello everybody, we are back here on the Hunter Call of the Wild. Now I promised you guys a little while ago that I would do a red deer guide for Emerald Coast whenever I finally got my great one red deer. And well, as you guys may have seen, a couple weeks ago we did end up getting our great one red deer, which means today we're going to talk a little bit about how I go about hunting the red deer here on Emerald Coast and what I would recommend doing if I could start this whole thing over again. Like, what would I prioritize? Where would I be hunting first? And what would I try to manage down if I'm doing herd management? We're going to go through all of that very, very shortly. Now, the first thing that we got to talk about is if you're doing herd management, where should you start? What should you try to manage down first? Now, there is a lot of solo male red deer, which means you're going to have to manage down those first, or else you're going to have a really difficult time getting them shot down to low levels. And for herd management with the red deer, you do want to be leaving every single level 4 that you find and killing every 5 and above. You could obviously keep the 9s on the map if you would like to speed up the process of getting the 4s, but we're not going to go into that quite yet. We'll go into that a little bit later in the video. So I would recommend going to the river first of all. The river is going to be one of the most annoying places to hunt. As you can see, there's a lot of zones along this river, and they are in really, really difficult to hunt locations. They're very, very brushy. There is a lot of solo males along this river, and they're just in general not in good places to hunt. It's tough to set up for them, so I would recommend trying to manage these down as soon as you possibly can, because it is a chore to hunt them, especially these over here in the mangroves. That is probably the worst part of all, is this little segment right here in the mangroves. I found that some of the best places to make as your main zones are going to be on these lakes. If you find a couple good herds across from each other, like you just saw me hunting, that is a prime candidate for a keeper zone, one that you want to grind for the rest of your grind. So what I would recommend doing is I would recommend managing down the river as well as keeping all these good zones that are on the lakes. And anytime you get a level 9 to spawn on these lakes, leave it. And then what that's going to do is help you shoot down places like the river a little bit easier, because you're stacking those higher scoring animals on the map, making it so that the average score of the reserve, or I guess of the red deer population, goes up, which makes the game spawn some more small stuff. And then as you get more small stuff, it'll help you get more big stuff, and it just kind of goes hand in hand with helping you get the opposite of what you're keeping. And then once you have managed down every zone aside from the ones that you have decided to keep as your main, which I would recommend keeping enough zones to where you can kill 15 to 20 red deer per run. Give or take a few, it doesn't have to be exact, but an amount where you're comfortable with it. So I would recommend whenever you get to that point where you've shot down everything else aside from the zones that you're going to be keeping as your main, then you want to go through and shoot all of the level 9 red deer that you have stacked. Now, at this point in the video, we're going to put up a little zone map of places that you need to search. This map was made by Pro XCK, so huge shout out to him. He makes some phenomenal maps, and I am a pretty big fan of the work that he does in terms of his guides and his maps that he makes. It's really, really well done, and he gave me the okay to use these types of maps in my videos, obviously, as long as I credit him, so be sure to go check him out if you haven't, because he makes some phenomenal guide content and zone maps. These are all the places that red deer can drink. Now, it's not going to be 100% the same for everybody. You may have a couple herds that are slightly out of the areas that he has marked down, but it's still going to be in those general areas for the most part. It's going to be, let's say, 95% accurate. So it may be good to check a few other areas, but these are the primary areas where you're going to find red deer. Now, in terms of the loadout that I like to use is the Tsurugi LRR 338. This is the bolt action 338 from the Hunter Power Pack. It is really good for taking down those non-diamond, non-rare stags that you have, because it kills them really quickly. If you don't care about getting full score, use the 338. It is phenomenal for red deer because you can get double lung on them and in many cases drop them on the spot. Then I've got the 308 Moonlight in case I find a diamond or a rare that I want to take down and I want to make sure I get full score on it. Use the 308 or any equivalent rifle. It doesn't have to be the 308 as long as it's an ethical caliber for the red deer. Then I've also got the 22 LR, the Virant, so that I can do the 22 trick whenever an animal is being stubborn and not giving me a good shot. You just shoot right next to their feet, and they will go alert and move around so that you can get a better angle. Obviously, with the ammo, you want to bring polymer tips, and then for the 22, it's just whatever ammo you want to go with. I personally use the Hyperion scope because it's not as zoomed in, which makes it so it's a little bit easier to control it, and also it's a little bit easier to find your next target for a follow-up shot. Sometimes the Argus can make it really difficult to get follow-ups because it's so zoomed in and takes up so much of your screen that I do recommend the Hyperion for any situation where you're going to be taking quick follow-up shots on multiple animals. But this is another thing that's pretty much personal preference. That's my personal preference, but if you'd like to do something else, feel free to. I do recommend the Hyperion, though. I don't use any colors at all in my grinds. This is just not really something that I've ever done because it doesn't fit the playstyle that I go with. So nothing on the collars, nothing on the consumables either. You're not really going to be taking any damage while hunting red deer. And if you do, you just go sleep at the tent and you're healed. Then I've got the Apex 7x42 binoculars. But again, whatever binoculars you can get a hold of, use those. And then I carry tents on me, just to make sure that if one of my tents gets taken down by like a red deer falling on top of it, then I can always just place it back down if I need to. Another thing I recommend is something that I don't hear anybody talking about, and that is making a loadout that is specifically just your tents, ground blinds, and stands. That way you can just quickly swap to that, place down a tent, then swap back to your red deer loadout, because that can make it a lot faster to cycle between things. Now, obviously, when you are first setting up your map, you're going to want to just put your tents in areas that are close to a lot of the zones. You could also attempt a different strategy where you set up at 8 different zones at a time, and then place 2 tents at each, 1 to shoot from, 1 to claim. That is going to be a little bit just kind of up to personal preference, like whether or not you want to have a tent near a bunch of zones and just have more parts of the map covered early on, or if you want to place them in positions like I have here to speed up the process of killing and claiming. What I've kind of done both of them, to be honest. I've done it to where I've had the claiming tents, that way I can quickly claim them and get the zone shot down. And actually, I believe what I did with the red deer was I just had a few zones like this, and then I had a few tents that were just in a general area. Like maybe I'd put a tent here, I'd use it to check this zone, then I'd run down and check these 2 lakes. Or maybe I would have like 2 tents on the river and I'd use them to check different sections of the river. Because you're going to do a lot of running around. Like the solos are going to move across the map very, very often early on. Like I would shoot some solos on the river. Next thing you know, they've appeared like over here or even over here or on a complete different section of the river. So you're going to do a lot of running around. Tent placement's going to come down to whether or not you want to have a lot of tents covering a large portion of the map, or if you want to focus a few zones and then move those setups, focus a few more zones, move those setups, focus a few more zones until you get them all shot down to 4s. You know, another question I get all the time is why do I use the waterfowl blinds instead of the tripods on a lot of my grinds? And well, the simple answer to that is look how close you can place them to the tent. You cannot place them this close with tripods. Tripods have to be approximately like this far away from the tent for you to place them down. And the other thing about a tripod is you have to go through an animation to get in it. It does a black screen and transfers you into the stand. With this, I can just run straight in it. It closes. And if I need a little extra elevation, you can jump on the edge of it. And as long as the little indicator of visibility is a flat line, then you're still going to get hunting pressure reduction, which is honestly pretty OP. These things are ridiculously good, and I'm surprised more people don't use them. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could pick this up and then I could put it even closer to the tent than what we just had it. You could put it like right there, and you can have it to where you literally just go straight into it. They're kind of OP for grinding. Another thing about the tents that is very important is make sure that it's at least like 220 meters away from the zone that you're going to be shooting from it. Otherwise, they will not render in. A lot of people think that it spooks them off if you're too close, but it actually doesn't. It just prevents them from rendering in. So you then have to back up a little bit to get them to pop into render. It's a very interesting and strange thing that is not immediately apparent if you don't know that that's what's happening. So that is something to look out for. You know, another thing that I would recommend is if for some reason you make a bad shot and it's not going to die quickly, I don't recommend chasing it down and claiming it. The time that you're going to spend chasing it down could be used for shooting more red deer. Now, obviously, you don't want to be leaving every single red deer you find, otherwise you're not going to make any progress towards your great one. But you do want to try and make the most out of your time. So if you make a really bad shot on one, I would not bother claiming it. The flip side to that is if you don't claim enough of them, you're not really going to be getting your great ones anytime soon, because according to the developers, you need to be killing and claiming your kills in order to get a great one. You can't just be leaving every single thing that you kill. A lot of people like to do the whole no-claim methods that used to be very, very popular. It's not as popular now because people caught on that you're not getting great ones when you're doing it. So don't do the no-claim methods. Make sure that you're claiming like 90% of your kills. So I think that's really all that you need to know about the red deer hunting here on Emerald Coast if you're going to be doing a herd management grind for the great one red deer. So hopefully this ended up helping you all out, and if you guys want to see exactly how my setup works and how fast I'm able to grind them, I'm going to link one of the live streams where I was hunting for red deer down in the description and potentially the comments as well, if I can remember to. I'll probably link the one where we actually ended up finding the great one red deer. That way you guys can see exactly like everything that I was doing and how I do it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!